It's the savvy side of 9 to 5. Listen.
It's not a lie if you believe it.
Laugh.
We had a little fun, because it's a very long day, you know.
And learn.
Negotiation. This is what you do in business.
This is The Focus Group with Tim Bennett.
All right, let's go already.
And John Nash.
Pucker up, Buttercup.
With a focus on career, the consumer culture, and marketing from an LGBT point of view. We're all business, except when we're not.
Hey, welcome to The Focus Group. John Nash here, and I'm joined, as always, by my good friend and co-host, Tim Bennett. You can now find us on your platform of choice for free, and that would be on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, and, of course, YouTube. And, in fact, we encourage you to watch us on YouTube because it's a whole nother dimension to the show. Tim and I spend a lot of time curating graphics that complement what we're talking about.
Picking out shirts.
And picking out wardrobe, because now we actually have to change a number of times.
Which I don't like because, I sweat.
Well, I don't have enough shirts in the day to go through all the shows. So Focus Group Radio is our handle on all things social media. So that's Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. Just use Focus Group Radio to find us. And we do have a phone number here. It's 914-362-8747. And if you call, you can leave a comment or a question for us. And if we use either on air, you'll get a pair of our free famous Focus Group Radio socks. And we have one last directive for you, and that's to subscribe, like, and rate us. So if you're listening on iTunes, by all means, like and rate, because that gets that up there. And someday we might be a featured podcast on iTunes. Did I get anything? Did I miss anything on the?
No, I think you have it all.
Cover it all. Okay.
I'm wondering though when we have to stop doing that. I listen to some other shows and they just start right in. They don't tell anybody what to do.
That's a great point, actually. And this is okay. So for anybody watching or listening, Tim and I have had these long conversations about what you do when you take radio to video.
Right.
And that's what we're basically doing. We're doing a radio show, and now we're doing it on video. But you're right; a lot of the formatics aren't necessary. I mean,
well, we've learned that from back in the day when we were at Sirius of doing that, and so I was wondering whether, because I've listened to some of the other shows, and they'll mention it. Maybe they come back from break, they might mention, be sure to do this or do that, but nobody really talks about all the stuff that we do sometimes.
I would be happy to simply reduce it to find us on these platforms.
Hello.
Find us on these other platforms, and here's how you find us on social media, and then get on with it, right?
Yeah.
It's a good idea.
Well, no, I just not an idea, I just thought of it as you were talking.
Yeah, it looks like you're going to the state fair.
You don't like this shirt?
No, I like this. I like this shirt a lot, but it looks like we're going to the county fair.
Well, I would have worn, and it's summer, the dog days of summer. I would have worn this with a blue blazer back in the day.
Yeah,
it's an old shirt.
If you were wearing it with a blue blazer, you're going to regatta.
Could be.
You're going to be going to regatta. Maybe there's a straw hat on. And what would be a Pim's cup?
Boater and a Pim's cup, a cranberry.
What the hell is a Pim's cup, by the way?
Pim's cup is delicious, by the way.
It's gin.
I haven't had one. It's gin and Pim's.
And gin.
Which
and
is
gin.
And a cucumber slice. Bob would know what a Pim's cup is. He's an Anglophile, right?
And he's also a gin whore. Yeah, he loves his gin. I'm a potato guy.
Really?
I like the fruit of the potato, the
vodka. Yeah, but growing up, John, we were gin and tonic guys.
Until freshman year of college, when I woke up in the hallway of the dorm, I think I'll just put it this way, in a pool of sick. And it was from Tanqueray. And then I was a little 10-foot stick with the gin. I'm like, you know what? The potato doesn't do this.
So will you have one now, though? We have a gin and tonic?
I certainly have a gin and tonic, but gin hits me way differently than vodka does.
Yeah.
Just like beer and wine. Like I have friends who drink a lot of wine, and now I know why. Woo!
Really? I became more of a wine drinker, the problem with wine I'm finding is that you drink more of it.
It's easy.
And I think it makes you put weight on awful quick. So I've stopped drinking wine during the week. I was thinking about when I used to never touch alcohol during the week. Unless you went out to a bar, you went out to a dinner with somebody, you might have a drink at dinner.
You used to have it with business meetings.
Business meetings, or if you had a dinner, your friend, you went out, you might have a beer or something. But I got into the habit of living next to my neighbor who,
he
professes to be Italian, although he found out from Ancestry.com that he's mostly British, which is really thrown the whole family as crazy because I ended up being the Eastern European. But he has wine every night because that's what his family did growing up.
Bottle of wine.
but they had a little glass. But he has the big bottle. So next thing you know, you're a couple bottles in, and I said, we've got to stop the drinking.
Okay, this is a great segue. Do you remember we were in Italy together? Tim called me one day and said, "What are you doing?"
Your birthday,
3 weeks from
40th
now,
birthday,
and I said, "I'm turning 40." This was about a year ago. So he said, "I want you to buy a plane ticket to Rome. I'm taking you on this shakedown cruise." So I was part of the crew that went over to see how this trip was going to work for the dealers.
Yeah.
It was an incentive trip. Remember we were and the food in Italy is beyond.
You can't find a bad meal.
It is incredible how delicious it is. But the Italians were very funny. They would say to us, "You guys don't do the pasta thing correctly." In Italy, pasta is a tiny little side dish. Mm-hmm. It's usually the fish or the meat, and then this little tiny thing of spaghetti or farfalle or whatever the pasta is. They said you got it all reversed. In the United States, it's all about the pasta and not about anything. So, hence the little glass of red wine.
Well, it's the same thing with the Japanese with sushi.
They only
Americans will order these massive amounts of rolls and sushi rolls, 60, 50 pieces, 60 pieces. And if you go out to dinner when I would be in Japan, we would get big bowls, and it was a shared. You might cook in the middle with a shared bowl of fresh vegetables and meats and seafood or whatever. And then at the end of the meal, they would order one roll, and that was six pieces, and everyone got a piece.
Not dessert. That was actually
that was part of the meal, but it was almost like we would have a salad at the end or a little
palate cleanser.
You don't order 50 pieces. 50 pieces of tuna, please. We go out with Americans for sushi, and they'll do that. So it's the same sort of thing. But we were talking about the wine, so that's how we got off on that one. I was very distraught today with my dog. I got to tell you.
Why?
She snapped at me.
Which one, Trixie? Or I think Trixie's not.
She's getting old. Well. She didn't want to go outside. It was a little wet, and she's now playing games with me. And no, Trixie, I got her out of the shelter. She's been with me through all the good and all the bad. She's seen all the good, all the bad. She's probably, they're guessing, maybe 12, 13 years old. She's starting to slow down.
That's
quite a bit. She's a puggle, right? Beagle and a pug. And she got to the door today, and she just looked at the rain and put her nose up. She wouldn't go out. So I knew I had to come to New York, so I'm like, "Come on, Trixie, let's go." So I went to grab her, and she snapped at me, which she's never done before, and she made a noise. And then,
I wonder if she's not feeling well.
Well, I don't think she's feeling well, but she has to go out.
Maybe, I hope you're not in the land of getting the wee-wee pads.
No, I have
when
those.
Our cats got really old,
they have.
We had pads everywhere.
They have
wee-wee. Pee all around the house. It was
she has wee-wee pads, but I don't think she's using them. I think Spike is using them.
Oh, and then one Spike uses a pad.
And the other one's got to come show their territory.
Yeah, I'm not going to pee where Spike peed.
No, I love the dogs, but...
Oh, look, they've been your constant friends and companions.
A lot of work.
All right, on the show today, we're going to be having a guest named Michael Adams. He's the Chief Executive Officer of SAGE, which is the Services and Advocacy for GLBT Elders organization. I think this is going to be fascinating because you and I came of age when the thought process of being old actually almost didn't exist because everybody we knew was dying. So the thought of being an elder, let alone a GLBT elder, that throws me, by the way.
GLBT. It used to always be GLBT. Remember back in the day when it first started, gay and lesbian, GL.
And then someone had a dust up and they turned it into LGBT.
And the B's still hanging out there.
I don't know. Yeah.
Now there's a Q.
For questioning.
And an I.
What was the I mean?
Intergender.
Okay.
An A.
Yeah.
I was schooled the other day by somebody telling me that you can't say LGBT anymore. It's LGBTQ.
And I've heard people use it, and it feels so. That's the one kind of thing I would say, oh my Lord, that's so politically correct. I feel like a Trumpian when I say that, but we know what they're getting at. Yeah. All right. So what caught your eye this week?
You probably saw this. I don't know if you did or not. I was going to post it to our Facebook.
No, I'm sure I didn't because I looked at your graphics before you came up, and
So you didn't see this? So if you're following along on YouTube, you'll be able to see because there's nothing like seeing it in person to know what we're talking about. But so the headline is New Jersey man's wife and girlfriend memorialize him in dueling obituaries. So I
was wondering why you did this. Okay, like why there was.
So there's this guy Leroy Bill Black. He died beginning of August, and he had 2 obituaries in the press for Atlantic City. So
John just put it up on the monitor, and it's the same picture of the guy.
The same
right?
picture, he's quite a dandy with that hairdo. But so there's two pictures, and so apparently the wife. So they contacted the funeral home. So the press, Atlantic City newspaper, contacted the funeral home and says, we have these two obituaries. They said, yeah, the wife and girlfriend couldn't agree what to
mistress.
say.
Okay.
Girlfriend.
Girlfriend. Okay.
You're going to say mistress because you want to pretend it's French, but no, this is Atlantic City.
Oh, no,
So-
all right. The minute you put it in AC.
So it says it's the one obit says 55-year-old New Jersey man is survived by his loving wife, and the other one says is survived by his longtime girlfriend, except they spelled long time wrong in the obituary. It was long tomb.
Long tune girl.
So the two identical obits for Leroy Bill Black appeared Friday morning in the press of the Atlantic City, back to back in the newspapers, print edition and online. So you could see both of them online. As I said, the staff member said the girlfriend wanted the obit to read a different way than the wife did. So the one listed his wife as Beretta Harrison Black among the surviving loved ones and didn't mention the girlfriend. And the girlfriend's obit, Princess Hall, she said she was among the bereaved but didn't mention the wife. So the second obit, as I said, spelled the name wrong. And the second obit also referred to him as Blast, Leroy Blast Black. She gave him his nickname.
The girlfriend.
Blast.
Okay.
And she said he reportedly died of fiberglass, lung cancer due to fiberglass exposure, is what the girlfriend said.
What did the wife say?
The wife just said he passed away.
Yeah, and the wife so the girlfriend calls him Blast, and the wife calls him the nickname.
Leroy.
But it looked like Bill there on the.
Yeah, well, his real name is Leroy Bill Black,
okay,
and the
okay.
girlfriend called him Leroy Blast Black. I wonder what Blast is.
I have about 2 thoughts on that. I'm not going to share, but
So the first obit says he died at home with his family, surrounded by his loving family, and the second one said he was a fiberglass tech. The cause of death was lung cancer due to fiberglass exposure. But then they both had the viewing and everything at the same time. It had all the same address and everything for the viewing. So I was wondering if the girlfriend, and I guess the girlfriend and wife were both there. Since they were arguing over the obit at the funeral home, they must have both been.
I would think that they would both have to have been
Service.
there, and you could imagine how that went down, right?
Well,
I don't want to say it was a cat fight, but there's some fun stuff that could happen there.
that's what caught my eye.
That was the only thing?
Yeah, it was the only thing this week.
All right,
I mean, there were other things, but
I had 2.
Oh, no, I do have one more.
Okay, I thought you did, yeah.
But it's not. There's no picture or anything to it. But I was wondering. I'll see if you can guess. So the Olympics are going on. We know the Olympics are happening, right?
They're winding up.
So what? So there's been lots of talk about. So what do you think the most popular name is now for? I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this. So babies that are being born now, girl babies being born now, are being called what?
Katie.
Nope.
Oh, Simone.
Simone. Up 230% in hospitals. They did a quick scan
For the
of all these
gym-
newborns.
the beautiful
because of
little
the
gymnast,
the
okay.
gymnasts, right? So Simone has become the new hot name.
I actually one of
I like the name Simone.
the fun things I got out of the Olympics was I would always like seeing Michael Phelps's fiance with the baby Boomer and his headphones on. I thought that was very caring to have, because babies don't need to hear all that stuff, right?
Baby don't need to be there.
Well, what caught my eye is, I'll kick it off since we're on the Olympic topic. Headline: Brazilian diver falls out with teammate. They were synchronized. These 2 women were synchronized divers.
Ladies?
Ladies, by bringing a canoeist back to share Olympic Village room for, quote, marathon sex session.
How did I miss this?
Well, who wouldn't have a marathon sex section with
Okay, now wait a minute.
so the girl,
who's who?
the girl is
She's the diver?
Ingrid Oliveira, 20. She's reported to have spent the night with canoeist Pedro Goncalves, also Brazilian, and in the Olympic Village as well. The pair are said to have engaged in what South American media reports have dubbed a marathon night of sex, fanning the flames of a row that led to the synchronized diving pair ending their friendship.
Well, wait a minute. Who's the diving pair?
They didn't. I didn't show her.
So that's the guy and her?
The girl is part of the diving pair. The guys who she hooked up with.
Oh, I thought it was a three-way.
No. He's a canoeist, and I just thought you get that great smile of his. And
See, here I thought you were doing a
the
three-way.
washboard abs I could clean my laundry on, et cetera, et cetera.
It's the girl from Ipanema, isn't it?
Yeah. So then the article.
Bump.
Yeah.
Did you not get my joke?
Got the joke.
Why'd you go right over it?
Because I'm looking at this next stat, which
Oh,
I think is
okay.
going to. So, having seen him, I can understand the marathon sex night. If you're gonna hook up,
Do they have drugs involved?
no.
do you know?
They're just bouncing off the wall athletes in the top of their prime. They're young. But here's how the article finished.
You don't know that.
He's 20 something. She's 20. They're
I
like.
bet there were drugs involved.
Here's how the article ended though. literally, it just finishes talking about the two of them, and it says, around 450,000 condoms have been distributed among athletes in the Olympic Village, 3 times more than for the London Games in 2012. The International Olympic Committee said part of the reason was because 100,000 female condoms will be available for the first time, along with 350,000 condoms for men. About 175,000 packets of lube are also being supplied. So someone sat down and said, these guys they're going to be going, they're young, they're attractive, and apparently there's a lot of sex in the Olympic Village.
Really?
Yeah. All right, the next thing that caught my eye is...
I didn't know that there'd be a lot of sex there.
Ooh, my
I
God.
guess so.
Did you watch diving? And just look at the bodies. Anyway.
I think the people are, anyway.
They're not. Look, I'm not hoping to go down to the Olympic Village myself, but
No, I just think when you're at that certain level of
competitiveness,
that maybe sex isn't part of it.
So a lot of the athletes that compete finish early, and when they're done,
Then you can go.
they're done, and then that's when they party and play. All right, so this next one is an audio one, and many of our viewers and listeners may be Futurama fans. Matt Groening's other cartoon.
Is that still on?
No, it had a great run, but it was Simpsons creator, Matt Groening. I fell in love with Futurama a long time ago. It's a very
Of course
funny
you did.
show.
Anything sci-fi you'll watch.
Yeah, bum, bum, bum. So, voice actor Billy West, here he is right here. On this particular show, he played 4 characters, and Garrett, one of our producers, was good to inform me that the one that we're talking about, Zap Brannigan, lower left corner, was going to be played by Phil Hartman, but we know what happened.
I thought that was Tom Arnold.
It does look a bit like him after he lost the weight, right?
Yeah.
It does. So it's Billy West. So the character in the lower left is called Zap Brannigan, and Zap Brannigan is this kind of Captain Kirk comic version of a starship captain. And many people said, oh, Zap Brannigan looks a lot like Donald Trump. So Billy West did this thing where he takes a couple of Donald Trump lines from recent press conferences, et cetera, and he does them in the Zap Brannigan voice as saying the Donald Trump thing. So here, let's go to one of our first ones. And this is from the New York Times in 1999.
I think the only difference between me and the other candidates is I'm more honest and my women are more beautiful.
And if you knew Futurama, that's the voice of the character. So the next one, I think, is about John McCain.
McCain. He's not a war hero. He's a war hero because he was captured. I like people that weren't captured. Okay?
And the last one is this taco bowl thing, which I think you're going to love.
The best taco bowls are made in Trump Tower Grill. I love Hispanics.
He loves Hispanics, what?
He loves Hispanics. So Zap Brannigan has a way of speaking that. So he started the project on August 10th, I think, and is vowing to continue it. He'll just find random.
Where can you find those?
It's called
somewhere.
On Twitter, the hashtag is Make America Brannigan.
Oh, that's
because it's Zap Brannigan, Make America Brannigan. So there you go.
That's great. So, John, do you like lemonade?
Is this Week in History?
This Week in History. Do you
I love lemonade.
So today, August 20th, is National Lemonade Day. There's a site, I don't know, there's some dueling conversation about whether Lemonade Day is the 20th or sometime in May. They were back and forth. But there's a area now called lemonade.org, which reminded me a lot of our friend Erin McHugh, the author who wrote the book One Good Deed. And one of the things she mentioned...
Memories of lemonade.
She just said never pass up a lemonade stand in the summer. So she said, because it's great for kids, it helps them how to develop leadership skills, collaborate, be responsible, have teamwork and so forth. And so this lemonadeday.org helps the kids set a goal, make a plan, work the plan, and achieve the dream. Tells them how to build a lemonade stand or whatever. So I just thought it was a cool thing. And I do that now still. I stop at lemonade stands. I don't know if you do. Do you ever stop upstate?
I do on my bicycle now and then when I'm riding upstate.
It's hilarious.
I love kids who set up the stand. Sometimes they look a little uninterested, but when they're like out there screaming and smiling,
well, they're so excited that you actually stop. Somebody stops. So I encourage everybody, if you see a lemonade stand in your travels, be sure to stop and support it. In 1741, Danish navigator Vitus Bering discovered Alaska. How tough was that? I don't think Alaska needed to be discovered, right? It was already
Well,
there.
you know,
Look at him.
Yeah,
Looks a little like, I don't know what he looks like.
I know what you're thinking.
Alaska's a big state. Look at how much Alaska
How much of the
takes up.
continental U.S. it occupies?
Turning red,
yeah.
Nash. 1939, the National Bowling Association was founded in Detroit, Michigan. It was the very first bowling association for African Americans. In 1965, the Rolling Stones single "I Can't Get No Satisfaction" was released in the
Wow, I love that you found the slip jacket for the single.
Yeah.
I love old design, and frankly, the only thing that really dates that is the photograph. Because look at the cars in the background.
Yeah. No, it's that's the one
And
thing
it's also
I missed.
Decca Records.
Well, we all missed it. We all miss
I
album
love
covers,
album.
don't
Yeah, I loved album art.
1998, our friends up north in Canada, the Canadian Supreme Court announced that Quebec could not secede without the federal government's consent. You know, Quebec's always threatening to leave.
All the time.
French want to leave. French want to leave. My grandmother, English Canadian, says goodbye.
Yeah.
She was.
Caused a bit of a problem for Canada, but
Well, she was hoping that then Prince Edward Island and New Brunswick, Nova Scotia would join the Maritimes. 1841, the patent for Venetian blinds was issued by John Hampton. I tried to find a picture of John Hampton, not to be
I
found.
like the dog trapped in the blinds better.
blinds. You like that?
Yeah, because our cats used to really
Did they get in the blinds?
on purpose. They would get those. Yeah.
Well, they're mad at you. 1878, the American Bar Association was formed by a group of lawyers in Saratoga, New York, John, playing the ponies. Lawyers and ponies.
I would love to have you up to see the races at Saratoga, but I love the billboard. Injured, don't pull your hair out. MyBaldLawyer.com.
MyBaldLawyer.com. I saw one when I was in South Carolina. The attorney's name was Dill. It said, "Call Dill when you're in a pickle." I thought it was great.
Good one.
The 1888, the adding machine was patented by William Burroughs.
It was Burroughs. That's right. Okay.
Yeah. 1959, Hawaii became the 50th state. Hawaii 5-0.
Of course, you find an absurd picture of people dressed as pineapples with
They were
coconut
Hawaiian
bras.
tourists.
Yeah, Hawaiian tourists. Okay.
Long way to go for a beach. It's the only state flag. I posted a picture of the Hawaiian state flag. The only state flag that has the Union Jack
Back in it. Yeah.
because of the it was a protector at one time in the 1800s for our friends across the pond. And in 1984, Victoria Roche was a reserve outfielder. She became the very first girl to compete in a Little League World Series game. I thought she looked like Rosie O'Donnell there, didn't she? I think that looks like Rosie O'Donnell.
When Rosie had her TV show,
Yeah.
that's where I would.
Well, they have that haircut.
And yeah, and that's where I kind of put that. Although she looks like another woman that I know too.
Does she?
Anyway,
So what happened in the week of science?
week of science. You're going to peg me for this one. This is not really science, but on August 18th.
It's supposed to be science, by the way.
On August 18th, Eugene Wesley Gene Roddenberry was born. Now, it was August 19th, 1921.
You're the one who wrote the books.
No, he created Star Trek.
Star Trek, yeah.
So there's a picture of him at Desilu Studios, Desilu, with the model of the Enterprise there. He wrote scripts for Highway Patrol, Have Gun Will Travel, and a bunch of other TV shows back in the day. He did a series called The Lieutenant and then struck gold with Star Trek, which ran for only 3 seasons.
Why did it only run for 3 seasons? I never
Canceled. It was actually
Nobody's
beat out
watching?
in the ratings by Lost in Space, if you could believe it.
See, I
Dr.
like
Smith and
Lost
the
in
Robot
Space. I like
got
Lost
the
in
better
Space.
of Star Trek. It ended up returning in the form of movies and TV shows, and there's a picture of the cast of The Next Generation, which he was a big consultant on. But I included it as a week in science thing because Star Trek has been pegged by numerous engineers and scientists and people in many fields as being the inspiration for their careers to go into aerospace or rocketry. Or
What happened to you?
I'm in like storytelling land, and Star Trek was make believe, so I guess it did its job, right?
Yeah, and that's what's so great about it, right? There, you could tell any story. No, it was all made.
For you, I've included on August 20th, the USSR recovered 2 dogs that were sent into space. They're Belka and Strelka. They were strays that wandered into the Cosmodrome area, and
They shot up in the moon.
Now,
Did they shoot them up to
see
space?
if you're watching this on YouTube, there's a picture of this museum, and I don't know if those are the actual dogs.
Of course they are. The Russians stuffed them. Look at Lenin.
So you think I was going to ask you this?
Of course they are the real dogs.
They seem to be the real dogs.
Yes, of course they are. The
So they're
Russians love to
stuffed.
stuff
Those
bodies.
dogs are stuffed, and they're on display by the
Someone's
capsule
in
we
every
went to
day
space
taking
in.
care of Lennon, putting the makeup
But
on.
Belka and Strelka were very famous. They had They had a cartoon created after them called Space Dogs, and they were like,
So they went up and came back.
they went up and came back.
Oh,
alive,
good for
yeah.
them.
And this last piece is interesting. In 1941, on this week in science, Hitler authorized the development of the V-2 missile. Now, the V-2 was used later in the war, mostly to cause a lot of damage and dispirit people. About 3,000 to 4,000 people in Britain alone were killed by these missiles. But the interesting thing about the V-2, and it's a sad fact, is that more than 20,000 people died constructing the missile. Now, I don't know if you remember.
Whoa, how many?
20,000 slave labor. The location of the missile factory was called Mittelwerk, and it was right by Buchenwald concentration camp. So I don't know if you remember back when we were on Sirius, we used to have a lot of callers from Alabama who were down by the U.S. Space and Rocket Center, and we had a guy call in named Chad one day who said, there's a lot of stuff behind how America got into the space race that's not so cool, and one of them is Wernher von Braun. Now, Wernher von Braun is the architect of the V-2. As Germany was collapsing, he smartly got himself to America. The Soviets wanted him very badly because of his knowledge, but it was because of Wernher von Braun that we developed the Saturn V, the Mercury Redstone, all the rockets that we ended up using to get man to the moon. So it's a sad history that the technology was actually built on the back of slave labor from concentration camps. And so, as this one man who said in this article, he goes, we got to the moon using V-2 technology, but this was technology that was developed with massive resources, including some particularly grim ones. Would we have gotten there without the V-2? Probably, but not as fast. It's one of those examples, again, of Germany, Nazi Germany, doing things that were totally horribly unethical, and yet they pushed, I guess
North Korea.
Yeah.
I mean, North Korea is doing the same thing right now.
So yeah, that's the week in science, and
Well, that's uplifting.
well, I thought that's why I'd kick it off with Gene Roddenberry. I should have finished with Star Trek, the Great Bird of the Sky, right?
The business birthdays speaking of outer space, we're the only show in the universe that does business birthdays.
Speaking of outer space, yeah, there you go.
He'd be celebrating, they think today, they don't really know when he was born or when he died. They've got estimates. William Caxton. Do you know him?
Why do I know Caxton?
1422. He was an English merchant, diplomat, writer, and printer. He's thought to be the very first English person to work as a printer.
That's it, Caxton.
The very first to introduce the printing press into England, which he did in 1476. He was also the very first English retailer of printed books.
So he was either a contemporary of Gutenberg or someone who picked up on Gutenberg's.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was the his London contemporaries were mostly Flemish, German, or French. So he took over, he was named one of the 100 greatest Britons of all time. So he printed 4/5 of the works in the English language. He translated a lot of works also from Flemish, German, or French. The very first one being Aesop's Fables. He also had a lot of trouble, though. They said at this time English varied greatly with styles and dialects and standardization.
So he's printing something, and yet.
So he said there was such disparity between
Spoken word.
You're right, and how somebody else would write something or whatever. So they said he's credited with standardizing the English language through printing, and kind of homogenizing the regional dialects. He also was the first one to produce Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. They have a little fact here that it's asserted that the spelling of ghost with the silent H was adopted by Caxton due to the influence of Flemish spelling habits. So a lot of times when we have silent letters, it comes from either the French or the Flemish.
This is a fun one because when I was a typographer, when I left college for a few years, Caxton was a very famous font. And now I understand.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I knew that the history.
I wonder what it looks like.
Well, it's what we call serif face. It's kind of like Caslon or Baskerville, but it was named after him, and now that makes complete sense because he's the father of like British printing, right?
You think about that. They had nothing else to do.
Do you not know where you get this? They had nothing else to do.
It's like Michelangelo. If you could paint, what's he going to do?
My Lord. All right.
So also celebrating.
Who else was born?
What?
Who else was born that didn't do nothing all day but something, right?
Well, that's why it would have been great to be born then. Oh, you do printing. So Sunday, August 21st, I think you met him. Charles Casper Payton, otherwise known as Jeff Stryker.
I did in Palm Springs. And I remember but the reason I love these two business birthdays is because you put this Caxton, right up there with Gutenberg, and then we turn the page and we get Jeff Stryker.
Jeff Stryker's birthday. You're right. He's 54. I thought he was older.
Let's put it this way. If you see recent pics, he looks okay.
The one on the right, supposedly recent, if you're watching the YouTube.
He looks okay. Now, he's straight.
No. Well, so he's primarily known for those who don't know who Jeff Stryker is, particularly in the 80s, he was big. He's primarily known as a performer in gay pornography, although Jamie Loves Jeff was one of the biggest selling heterosexual adult movies of all time, which he starred in. He says he doesn't define himself.
There you go. All right.
He also tried acting. He was in a 1989 Italian horror movie called After Death, Revenge of the Zombies.
Oh, Jesus.
He was also in a movie, and it says non-porn, but the title of it was "Can I Be Your Bratwurst, Please?"
Enough said.
So his anatomy, if you see the middle picture there, was molded or cast, his unit. They took his unit. I'm trying to be nice way to phrase this.
You could use a biological term. They created a dildo
based on his penis, and it's apparently very, very popular with the lesbians. I had no idea.
With the lesbian market.
Yeah, the lesbians like it. And there was a whole thesis written about it from a scholar at Bowling Green State University about lesbian pornography and transformation. And it was really all geared around the Jeff Stryker dildo. And this was done as a cultural studies class in 1995. So the sex toy is notable because it made him a lot of money. There was also a lot of fake rip-offs, knockoffs of it. So he was litigious in trying to make sure that nobody would take his likeness. And he's also now trying to sing and do a couple of other things. But my favorite line of this whole thing is John Waters said he's the Cary Grant of porn.
The Cary Grant of porn.
So happy birthday, Jeff Stryker.
I did meet Jeff Stryker in Palm Springs, and I was with my friend Jordan Pimer.
You like this big?
He's short. Not short. He's I'm 6'1". He's probably about 5'8", maybe. Maybe not even, maybe 5'7". So there was a bar that we went to, and he was there, and you could have your picture taken with Jeff for like $5 or something. It was a Polaroid. So when I was preparing the show and I saw that you had put him in there, Bob says to me, "Get your picture of Jeff Stryker."
Did you find it?
It's upstate. So what I'm going to do is I'll scan it and I'll put it
on the Facebook.
But it's me. It's like Casper the Friendly Ghost next to this super hot guy. I'm Casper. He's the super hot guy.
Would you have had a session with him?
Would I have had a...
If allowed, would that be a pass card for you? I know Bob's got Justin Timberlake, but...
I'd make it a pass card.
Okay.
Why not, right? Life's too short. Tim, what do you always say? You're dead a long time.
You'll be dead a long time. That's why when you sleep all the time, like you're gonna be sleeping a long time.
Wake up. You're gonna be dead again.
So hey, it's a focus group with Tim Bennett and John Nash. Stay with us. When we come back after a short break, we've got Michael Adams joining us, who's Chief Executive Officer of SAGE, which is Service and Advocacy for GLBT Elders. So he'll be joining us to talk about our aging LGBT population. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
Brought to you by the Volkswagen Golf GTI. Named one of Car and Driver's 10 best, 10 years in a row. Let's make some money.
He's the business manager, let him manage.
This is the Focus Group.
Champagne! Champagne for everyone!
Hey, welcome back to the Focus Group. John Nash with Tim Bennett. Find us on your platform of choice. That could be YouTube, iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, or Google Play. And Tim, I'm trying to shorten this up. And like us on social media. Oh, yeah, even better. Tim, a marketing guy. Focusgroupradio.com. You'll find everything there, including the links to our social platforms. Joining us now is Michael Adams. He's the Chief Executive Officer of SAGE, a really cool organization. It means Services and Advocacy for GLBT Elders. Tim and I always...
Otherwise, it'd be SAIL.
We always say it like LGBT.
It doesn't quite work.
So welcome to the broadcast, and I think it's a great opportunity to talk to you about a really cool organization. And I'll kick it off by saying, the thing that fascinates me about the time period that we're in is I'm not sure any of us, and I'm just going to speak generally, thought we would ever be talking about GLBT elders, and yet many of our community are aging gracefully and beautifully, and they're going to need the same exact resources as the heterosexual community, living facilities, and a lot of us don't have the advantage of having kids.
That's right.
Who do a lot for their parents in their older years. So why don't you talk a little bit about SAGE?
Sure. So SAGE was founded in 1978. So we're not just an organization about aging, but we're also an older organization. But we were founded really for precisely the reasons you're describing, because like any other community, we have a community with people who are aging, a large older population, and we do need the same kinds of life opportunities, care services, and support as we get older. But actually, it's more complicated for us often. And a lot of that is about the fact that most of us don't have kids, don't have grandkids. We're actually more likely to be single than older Americans in general. And unfortunately, we do sometimes still in this day and age face discrimination, including in the retirement world, in senior services. And so for all of those reasons, life can be more complicated as you get older as an LGBT person. So we're all about trying to work with older people to solve for those problems.
So are you guys a national nonprofit?
We are.
So how many different are there offices in each? Are they regional, or are they by cities, or how?
They're by city. We have 30 SAGE affiliates in 30 cities in 20 states across the country.
So is there a brick and mortar place if I was LGBT in Des Moines? I mean, is there a physical place I could go to, or is this more telephone based, or?
In our 30 cities, there's a physical place. Okay. Unfortunately, Des Moines isn't one of them yet.
I just pulled it out. I don't know, Des Moines.
Yeah, it's a good.
But for example, if you're in Milwaukee, if you're in St. Louis, if you're in Fort Lauderdale, if you're in Cleveland,
any other place other than Des Moines.
Right, so there is a physical place in those cities where people can go to participate in programs to get information. One of the challenges, though, I think you're pointing to is it's a big country.
Right.
We've got lots of cities and lots of towns. So actually, this fall, we're launching a national hotline for older LGBT folks. So no matter where you are in the country, you can reach someone, talk to them, ask questions, get information.
What's considered, there's a number of my friends that are going through this now, AARP, the association, I forget, American Association of Retired People. Yeah. Hit 50, you're getting that, but you don't feel like, I'm 50 years old. I'm not an ARP person. What is the definition of elderly GLBT? Is it 50 or is it 55? I mean, how do you
for SAGE,
break it down?
For SAGE, it depends on our programs. For our service programs, our senior centers and things like that, where you'd walk through the door and participate in a program or get some kind of services, it's 60 and up. However, we have lots of programs where that doesn't apply. So for example, we have a big program where we provide support for caregivers. You're taking care of your partner, you're taking care of your elderly mom. And a caregiver comes in every age, right? So if you're a caregiver, you can be part of SAGE's programs at any age. We have a work training program for older people in the LGBT community. That program is actually 40 and up, because that tends to be the time in life where people sometimes start to struggle in their career. So it depends on the program, but most of the programs that are on site are 60 and up.
Now I'm going to say it's I.L. Feldman, right?
Yeah.
We had a guest, one of our favorite guests, I.L. Feldman, he introduced us to the concept of the volunteering for SAGE. Yes. And if I'm not mistaken, he actually had a client that I don't know, do you call it a client or a friend, or I'm not sure how what terminology you guys use, but he had either one or a couple of people that he would check in on a regular basis. Yep. I think that's I'm going to selfishly say, I think there's an amazing resource there, and I wonder about someone walking in and saying, I want to contribute my time, I want to be a connective tissue for an elderly LGBT person. Do you work with the volunteers to kind of match them with people, or is it a random thing?
So at SAGE, one of our favorite themes is taking care of our own, that we need to take care of each other, right, and take care of our community members. And IL is an amazing example of that. the most of what SAGE does, the programs we do, happen because of volunteers of all different kinds. The program that Aiel was talking about that he was a part of, we call our Friendly Visitor Program. So, when we have senior centers and programs like that in different cities, those are great for people that can actually come to those programs. But a lot of times people get to a certain age, it's hard to get out of the home, right? They become more and more homebound, more and more lonely. So we run a program called Friendly Visitors where we will match up a homebound LGBT elder with a volunteer. And what that volunteer is, their only job is to go and hang out for a couple hours a week with that person who's at home. And for both, what we hear over and over again is that that's a life-changing experience, not just for the person who's homebound, but for the volunteer themselves. Right. And Aiel talks about this as well, and we hear this over and over again. Sometimes the volunteers that do that are young people, so it might be, a guy or woman in their 20s who doesn't know any LGBT person in their 70s or 80s or 90s, and this is their chance. Sometimes they're closer in age. So that's one of the ways that people can volunteer. We have volunteers doing everything, teaching cooking classes, teaching Tai Chi, teaching people French. I mean, everything under the sun we use volunteers for.
What is you're as a nonprofit, then you're fully funded by either grants or sponsorships and so forth, right?
Well, we're never. We wish we were fully funded, but we are.
You're never fully funded.
We're never fully funded, but we are. We're funded by partly by the government, partly by private foundations, and very heavily by individuals. Actually, individuals who contribute to the organization and support our work.
So, what is I don't want to say what keeps you up at night, but there's obviously what are the big issues right now with
challenges?
The challenges with
is it a funding
what
challenge,
you're doing? Well, I'm wondering if it's a funding challenge, or are you seeing a pattern all of a sudden with, I think, affordable housing as an example? Because when John and I were talking earlier, so many of us are living longer, but there was also AIDS that had devastated our community, which has obviously changed the landscape a bit. But is there one thing that you guys are challenged with? That you weren't, say, 5 years ago?
Probably the thing that keeps me up most at night is the disconnect between the number of people that need our support, our assistance, and the resources that we have. And I'll just give you an example. In housing, right? So there is a huge, huge challenge for LGBT older folks who need senior housing in this country. Now, some people can just stay in their homes until the end, everything works out great. It doesn't always work that way. Often people need to, at some point, move into
medical care,
some kind of senior, exactly. And we partnered with an organization in 2014 to do a national study that found, and what that study found is that 48% of LGBT older people who apply for senior housing are subjected to discrimination. 48%. So think about the magnitude of that problem, right?
1 in 2, right?
Right. It's huge. Now, so once...
How does that... How do you collect that? Yeah. In other words, so does somebody tell them, or?
It's a very interesting study. It uses a mechanism called paired testing. And what paired testing is you send, in this case, an older heterosexual couple in, and you have them inquire about the housing, and then a half hour, an hour later, you send an older same-sex couple in to apply for the exact same thing. Everything about them is the same, except that this couple's heterosexual and this couple is same-sex. And in 48% of the cases, they get rejected. They're told there are no apartments where the heterosexual couple is told there are. They're told higher rents. They're told multiple months of security, etc. So it's and it was done in 10 states across the country. So it's not just Alabama, not to pick out any state, but it's every part of the country. So what that means is that's a huge problem, right? Now, one of the ways that you can address that problem, and we're doing it here in New York City, and it's happened in some other places, is we can build our own. Our community can build our own LGBT-friendly senior housing. But if you think about that, if we build a building like one of the buildings we're building in New York is going to have 145 apartments in it. That's great. But then think about the scale of the problem and how many apartments. So that's really what kind of keeps me up at night, whether I'm thinking about housing or in long-term care, like nursing homes, assisted living. The reality is members of our community need those places more than other people, because since we don't, for the most part, have adult sons, adult daughters to help us out, we have to rely more on that. But yet, there are pretty high levels of discrimination in those settings as well. A lot of that's from our peers. If you look at opinion research in this country, it shows that the older you are, the more likely you're going to have bias against LGBT people. Well, who lives in nursing homes?
Right.
Who lives in assisted living? Old people, right?
Oh,
so the problem
it took
is
me a
right,
second to connect that dot. That it's not the external. It's those residents already, or the people that are taking care
it's
of them.
the people in the next room over,
Yeah.
or the people that you might be sharing a room with, or the people that you're in a dining room with, etc. Sometimes it's the staff as well, but usually it's more that it's the people, it's your peers, and when the staff don't know what to do about it, and so they ignore.
This explains a number of articles the Times ran in the last 2 years about, and they would profile certain individuals that basically had to go back in the closet.
Yes.
For elder care.
Yes.
So they cut that whole part of their life out of an interview or a discussion with anybody, and it's sad. And then they did profile eventually a gay couple that successfully moved into a facility. They were loved by everybody, but they said that's not the norm.
That's not the norm.
Well, they just I live in Philadelphia. They just opened senior housing there, and all the reports are they could have filled it 10 times over.
Absolutely.
So even in Philadelphia, I mean, all cities now are going through this. I think there's a 6-story, 10 apartments per floor sort of
John
thing.
C. Anderson apartment.
Yes.
Great.
And
great
was that?
facility.
I think you told me that was sold out before they even broke
they
ground.
could have filled it times 10. Yeah.
Every
because,
building, every building that is,
Yeah.
and so what ends up, so those buildings are important, but the reality is to get to the larger part of the problem, we have to do the work, and this is a big part of what SAGE is doing these days. We have to do the work to change the places that aren't specifically designed for LGBT people. The reality is 99% of us are going to be in the very same senior housing, assisted living, nursing homes as evereverybody else. So
you need to buy some resorts in the Catskills.
Right.
Some of those old Borscht Belts.
They're going for not very much money, so that's
It's not a bad idea. Do you work with groups? I'll just HRC, for instance. Do you guys work with them in tandem to say, okay, you bring your issues forward? Because if the HRC do they have a group that specifically addresses the elderly population, or is that
They
do they
don't.
rely on you guys for most of that?
They don't have a particular group that does that, but they have done some great work in partnership with us. I mean, just to give you an example, SAGE has a federal policy office in Washington, D.C. So our director of federal policy works in Congress, will work with federal agencies to try to change laws and policies on aging to make them LGBT inclusive. And on a number of occasions, HRC has given us a real helping hand with that. They have a larger federal operation than we do. They're well known on Capitol Hill. So there's no reason for us to try to recreate that wheel, right? So they do provide important assistance in those areas. SAGE has the expertise in aging, but they may have the access that opens the door to that senator's office, right? Or the access that opens the door to that cabinet secretary's office.
So I think that if anybody's watching or listening and they're like, wow, I got to get involved in SAGE somehow, or I have to check out the organization more fully, volunteering, you mentioned earlier, is a huge opportunity. When you look at the silos in volunteering, what area would you say requires the most attention? Is it the home visits, or is it the teaching of the classes, or?
It's actually probably not the home visits, because that friendly visitor program, I think because it's so rewarding for our volunteers, is the only program we have where we sometimes have more volunteers
Waiting
than we have
list.
people
It's a
who need
waiting
it, right?
list.
But in every other program, that's not the case. So we need volunteers all the time in our senior centers and senior programs across the country to teach programs, to help serve dinner.
It could be that simple. It could be going and helping to serve dinner and just hanging out.
And people do that as an individual. Sometimes we get teams of people from companies that will come in and do that. We're getting ready to start a program next year. One of the challenges that we face is that in our community, we don't talk about aging, and we don't talk about elders, or we don't like to talk about.
We're obsessed with youth, right?
That is
particularly
that
with
is
the
a
LGBT community.
That is a cultural-wide issue, but more concentrated in this youth.
Exactly. And so a huge part of the work we have to do is to change that invisibility into visibility, because if nobody in our community is talking about it, then we can't address these issues. So in terms of volunteerism, in the year ahead, we're going to be launching launching a couple of big campaigns to get people in our community to talk about aging and talk about our older folks. We're doing it in partnership with the ARP. We'll be rolling it out a little later this year. There are going to be lots and lots of volunteer opportunities there. We also need volunteers for our new national hotline. People who will get trained to actually answer the phone.
All right. So I'm really fascinated by this, and I've been looking at my schedule, and I've been puzzling about giving back in some form or another, and there's many ways to do it. I love kids, but I also love my community, and I'm wondering, what kind of time commitment would you say someone should be thinking about really committing to for a volunteer program?
It depends on what the program is. It can be as little as an hour a week, 2 hours a week, or it can be much more than that. Depending on we have some folks who are retirees who have more time to give, but we have lots of people volunteering with Sage who are very busy jobs. They can give an hour or two a week, and that's great because we have so many different kinds of needs. We can plug people in.
It reminds me of. Do you remember the Seinfeld episode where they did the elderly visits? Did you remember that one?
I saw that.
You should watch it. Because I'm thinking of John. There were a couple of them were not teamed up correctly, perhaps.
That's that.
So I'm just thinking
that was
about
the comedy.
And comedy
I
ensues.
think in the episode, one of the people that was being visited was like, they can't come back.
They can't come back.
Well, what's interesting.
You're unvolunteered.
You're unvolunteered, yeah.
In the Friendly Visitor Program, because we're sending volunteers into people's homes, there's a very extensive screening process to match up the volunteer with the older person who's being visited. In most of our programs, that's not the case at all. If you're going to serve dinner, if you're going to do this or that, you just come in,
different contact point.
But if we're going to send somebody into somebody's home, then we do some work to make sure that and it's funny. It's often unlikely pairings. I remember early on in my time at Sage, there was an elderly gentleman who's since passed. His name was Frank, who he'd been with Alvin Ailey. He was a dancer. By the time we were working with him, he was in his 70s. He was paired up with a young model, a woman in her late 20s, and they just became the most incredible. They totally clicked, and they loved spending time together. She became a fierce advocate for him. You never know, but somebody figured out, right, that their interests, that their personalities would go.
I would like to pursue this more, and my mind is spinning with not only possibilities for you to be back with us talking about the variety of programs that you're doing currently and also planning on launching, but when you mentioned the Seinfeld episode, I thought there's just some comedy that could do wonders for Sage.
Well, it's
we have some stories.
It's putting a face on it, though. I was thinking about. I was reading all the background information on Sage and yourself, and I thought we are so obsessed with youth in our culture. And I thought, when was the last time we actually saw a older or elderly role model in our community? I think maybe recently Edie Windsor.
Yeah.
Maybe she might have been, but I couldn't think before or since.
She stands out because she's so unusual, right? There just aren't that many of them.
Right. And so are you going to try to get some of our more senior LGBT community members to be part of this?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, it's funny you mentioned Edie because Edie has been very involved with Sage for a long time, and she ended up being the kind of poster child, so to speak, for a campaign that Sage did after we won marriage equality called Talk Before You Walk. And the point there was like, think about it a little bit before you decide to get married, because sometimes it has consequences that you don't really imagine, right? But for us, it's really lifting up older people to be role models is important, and there's a huge appetite for it. We're getting ready to do a program next year with an organization called the Generations Project.
I know.
Wes Enos?
Yes, and in fact, a friend of mine named Pat Owens is connecting me with Wes, and when he told me about the Generations Project, I had never heard of it, but Wes is...
the stories? They tell the stories?
That's different.
Okay.
But there's the Story Collider. I told you about the scientists, but then the Generations Project is younger gay men connecting, or younger gay individuals connecting with, am I getting that right?
That's right, with older LGBT folks and sharing stories about their history, learning from each other. And the amazing thing is, I've been to a couple of Generations Project events, and we're getting ready to house a bunch of them at Sage. And the fascinating thing is how many young people show up for this.
Yes.
We have more young people showing up for it than we have elders.
And my
right?
friend Pat said that a lot of them crave
Yeah.
this history that they peripherally see or they hear about, the clubs, what was gay life like back then. They crave it in a good and positive way because they don't see it anymore. And we're gonna have to work with you on that. And I have to get
Wesley Enos.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'd be great to have on your program because it's such a great vision, and I think it's the flip side of this idea that we only, that our community is so ageist, or we don't want to think about old people. What Generations Project is showing us is that there are all kinds of young people that are looking for that opportunity. But how do you do it? Like, how do you create the opportunities? And that's where this partnership is between Sage and the Generations Project is going to be really exciting.
So for people that are interested in donating or learning more about Sage, what's the
www.sageusa.org.
Sage USA.
SAGEUSA.org.
That's right.
So Michael Adams, CEO, and I want to make sure I say this right because we always say LGBT, but it's CEO of Sage Services and Advocacy for GLBT Elders. We want to thank you for joining us here in the focus group, and we'd like you to come back and when you do launch this program next year and learn more about it. It's a focus group with Tim Bennett and John Nash. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to do some shop talk, so stay with us.
Great.
Brought to you by Volkswagen. Visit VW.com to learn more. You're listening to The Focus Group
I said to my girlfriend just the other day, monsters are interesting, I said.
with Tim Bennett and John Nash.
And I'll bet you meet a lot of interesting people, too.
Hey, welcome back to the Focus Group. John Nash here with Tim Bennett. FocusGroupRadio.com is the simplest way to find all the platforms we're on, including social media, which is Focus Group Radio. That's Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. Thanks to Michael Adams, Chief Executive Officer of Sage Services and Advocacy for GLBT Elders, for stopping by. I would like to be a volunteer. I don't know that I would do right away the visits, although that could be really cool.
Do you need references?
He might want references. You might give me a super bit, he's gonna. I could talk the goats off.
Talk the horns off a goat. You know what? You should just go see my father. That's what you should do. Yeah, so you and my father could sit around and talk about nonsense all day. And Chinese food and lobster. And
if you had Chinese, Timmy. He calls me up one day. He goes, my dad says, hey, there's a new Chinese restaurant down. If you had that
what we're having for lunch? Chinese. You ever had it?
Got a wonton.
It's a big menu. Order whatever you want.
Hey, Tim found, we're just going to do a quick little shop talk here. Tim found a good article, and it actually came about because we were talking about the dog days of summer. And I noticed last week here in the city, and I was meeting with our sales. What is Ed's official title? President of the Universe of Sales, or something like that.
The Grand Supreme.
Grand Supreme Leader of Sales. And we both agreed that earlier than other years in the past, the city just feels different because most of the city's on vacation. Kids are back from summer camp. Mom and dad take them out. And it's all touristy. But August is a funny month. And Tim found an article and says, August is secretly the best month to get things done. I read this, and guess what? I completely agree with this, especially the deep thinking part.
Well, what's it remind you of?
Well, it reminds me of that week between Christmas and New Year's.
I called it the gay Christmas.
Oh, okay.
So
that's what I
all the gay employees had. All the gay employees would work between Christmas and New Year's because you had no life or no family, so you didn't have to travel. So no kids. But so do you agree with this, that you can get things done in August?
Well, what I underlined and starred, August is secretly the best time to get things done. The lack of work and people makes it a good time to do deep work. And that's a term coined by Georgetown professor Cal Newport. The rest of the year when the office is up and running, we all get sucked into what I call nonsense work. I cleaned my inbox out. I have 5 meetings today, but that doesn't really push the ball down the lane or get you any further on some of these big projects. So they suggest that, don't take off in August. Go into work and get some of the big stuff done, things that require more thinking and more concentration.
Well, because a lot of people will wait till Labor Day when as you said, kids are back to school, whatever, and it'd be good to be prepared to hit the ground running on Labor Day with whatever your initiatives might be or whatever you're doing, because otherwise you're going to just wait, and then before you know it, September's gone.
I just had a complete
What are you smirking?
I just had a complete random thought. I think if you had a white apron on, you could work at a malt shop, and one of those hats. I just saw you on the monitor with the striped shirt, and I thought, my God, you could be at the malt shop. I'll have a black and white, please. Sorry. Anyway, back to vacation time in August.
I won't even start.
Look at the Supreme Grand Leader of Sales hiding behind his laptop laughing.
I'm never going to wear this shirt again.
No, I love this shirt.
I'm never going to wear it again. And I'll tell you what, I wore this, I think it was this shirt. Now that I think about it, I did wear this shirt once with a pair of light-colored khakis with a blue blazer. But then
it looks great. That's the regatta.
Took the blazer off. And my old boss, Bill Cyphers, asked me the same thing. He goes, you know, I'll have a vanilla cone.
He did not.
Yes, he did. At work. No, he did say that. So I'll never wear the shirt again. Now that I'm looking at it myself, I think in the one monitor I look okay. The other one I look a little washed out. Maybe the boys can darken it. I want it to be bleached out like you.
Maybe they could also take 10 years off. Wait, that's Botox.
Put some elastic on your...
I was doing that the other day in the mirror. I was like, what happens if you get pulled back? Like,
you've done Botox and you've lied about it. Yes, you have.
No.
You did. You've done it.
When?
You've done Botox. Yeah, I noticed.
Where do we do Botox?
You did. I think you did, yeah.
Well,
pretend you didn't.
Thank you for the compliment, but no, I haven't. I would not have. What was it? It was a poison that they inject in you. Do we have it done somewhere? Do we? No, I'm not even following. No, I am not. We did not do Botox.
Okay.
And we're not going to.
Fast Eddie back there says he has.
You've done it? Oh my God. Yeah. No, I just...
So, well, this went off the rails.
Yeah, sorry about that.
So much for August.
No. The whole point of the article was...
There's no point of the article. You went and picked on my outfit.
I just had
I'm wearing blue now. From now on, Paul and Mass told me to wear blue. He said, don't wear anything else but navy blue. So
I got the blue thing from him, too.
Well,
we can't both be in blue.
I'm wearing blue now from now on. Now that you made fun of this, I thought I would change it up a little bit on color. And
okay, you want to know what really happened? There is a movie with, Pleasantville. Okay, and Jeff, who's the actor I'm thinking of? All right, so Tobey Maguire goes through the TV set into a black and white world, and there's a guy that runs a malt shop who becomes a painter. Anyway, I'm thinking of this scene in the movie, and when the movie goes to color like The Wizard of Oz, he's wearing a pink and white striped shirt. So anyway, and he was a malt guy, and he had a paper hat on, like the Jelly Belly hat we got. You didn't keep yours. I can't.
Talking nonsense again. You're not going to be able to volunteer at Sage if you're going to keep this up. We're going to have to find some old gay Trekkie.
They're going to pair me
some
with
old gay queen that's from outer space.
More,
maybe some old astronaut you can go talk to. Maybe Svetlana needs a visitor. Did she leave Kazakhstan?
Better yet, they're going to pair me with the stuffed dogs. Go take care of the stuffed Belka and Svelka.
It doesn't matter. You'll talk anything.
That's my point.
Well, anyway, and the other point of this article is don't not take your vacation time. So you should also
Americans
make sure
leave a lot of vacation on the
desk.
desk.
We leave too much vacation on the table, so make sure you take it. So hey, it's the Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Ash. We want to thank everybody for joining us. Be sure if you like us, which we hope you do, you subscribe or like and rate us along the way at any of our platforms of choice. New shows every Saturday. We want to thank our friends at Volkswagen of America. John and I, in a couple of weeks, will be heading out west with a drive through the Rockies with the all-new Golf Sport.
We're very
wagon,
excited.
Which is going to be an all-wheel drive, all-track. So we'll be on the road for about 8 days driving that car with craziness. John's got a lot of ideas.
And Tim has actually put together one hell of a hilarious itinerary. You picked some very fun...
Well, I reluctantly picked some
Tim
sci-fi.
picked some America. You reluctantly. There's only
Who wants to go to Atomic City?
Well, it's dead.
It's like going to Afghanistan.
Like watching Tumbleweed. It's like when we got off the road to buy the best pie in America. Remember that?
Bye, everybody. See you next week.
The Focus Group, an entertaining look at the outside of business. For your convenience, listen anytime, anywhere, anyway, anyhow, and on anything. Got it? Head over to focusgroupradio.com and pick your poison. We're all business, except when we're not.